All right, today we're going to show you an update with our pigs. As you can see, compared to the last video, they're looking bigger, they're looking good, a little skittish yet. All right, so what we're going to see here is where we had them last time. So if you compare it to the last video, you can see there's some of the grass is still standing, some of it's trampled and tore up, and some of it's actually regrowing. What we did is the same as last time. We took our mower, we mowed another path, and we opened up the next section. I didn't move them completely yet. I opened up the next section. What I want to do is kind of wean them into their new feeder that you can see here and to their mobile shelter. So give them time to get used to that shelter compared to the bigger one that we have. So it gives them a little time to get used to it. So we open this up. They've had a few days on here already, trampling this down, as you can see, eating some of the grass and getting them used to that feeder. So about another week, we're gonna go to the next section and we'll put our portable fence back in this row and then get them moving along without using their bigger shelter. So we'll run the hoses out, move the water. We'll show how we stake that in and how that's mobile and everything. But as you can see here, with some of the rain that we have, the grass is growing back nice. We're gonna go through and put a seed mix on there and get that regrowing. I'm going to show you some of the mistakes that I made from last year that I'm going to fix this year. Some of these areas where the pigs go in and really root this ground up, I made the mistake last year by not coming back right away and raking that back smooth and reseeding it. So what happened last year, sometimes you think, I'm just going to get to it in a couple days, and a couple days turns into a week, the grass is growing back, and now you got sod that's growing there and you can't level it back flat. So depending on what you have going on with what you're going to do here next, you really don't want all those humps and everything in there. So with this disturbed ground, you really need to come back and level that out. Don't put it off a couple days, because chances are you're not going to come back and get to it in time. So I have to come back here when I move them, get back in the area that they just left, get that raked back flat and fill in the humps and the holes that they created, get it seeded right away, and then keep that going so you don't build up a bunch of work for yourself. So we'll keep you updated with how these pigs are doing, and we're going to show you some of the other things that we have going on at the homestead. All right, the next thing we have going on here at the homestead is this giant pile of wood chips. I was able to use a local source that has a sawmill that these chips normally go to the paper mill, but my money's as good as theirs. I was able to get an entire truckload, so there's about 100 to 110 cubic yards of wood chips here. And the other reason I got these is I work with my neighbor. So like in one of the shorts, we told you about making friends and utilizing your local resources. I have a neighbor. He has a big van trailers. So at the sawmill, they're able to blow all these chips in, and we need to unload them. So we used our railroad ties. The trailer got backed up. We stacked up the railroad ties. We used our bundle of cedar posts, and I had 2 IBC totes. We piled up some mulch that I already had to make a ramp, and he came with a skid steer, bucket by bucket, to take out the entire van load of wood chips here. So it took him a little less than 2 hours. And the next best thing with that is I was able to barter his time for some of the services that I was able to offer. So it was no money out of pocket, and both of us were happy. So we're going to be preparing some of the beds and using this. Eventually it'll break down. We're building soil. Some of the areas around here are fairly rocky, sandy. The soil is not great. So we're going to use this for some of the compost and just sheet mulch the crap out of some of these areas around here to start building the soil for planting for next year. One of the next projects we have here on the homestead is cutting up firewood for this winter. We heat our house pretty much exclusively with firewood, so we ordered a lot of it. The first half of the pile is about 12 cords of mixed hardwood. This other 6 cords is all dead standing oak. So what I'm going to show you is what I think is one of the more important things when it comes down to cutting firewood. As you can see, some of this stuff is anywhere from 12 to 20 inches. So if you're dealing with bigger wood or a lot of wood, in my opinion, you need a professional level chainsaw. So I'll show you some examples of saws that I have. So 2 of the older ones, this is a Stihl 044, a 440 Magnum, and a newer 362C. All 3 of these are professional level chainsaws. They got 20-inch bars. They have more power than like your smaller consumer saws. They also have better parts, better build quality. They're made to run more than a homeowner saw compared to something like the Steel 291. From looking on the outside, yeah, you can see it's a little bit smaller, but you know, the numbers, yeah, 291, 4, you know, what does all this stuff mean? You need to look up for whatever brand you're looking at. So something like this 291, this is a consumer level saw. So some of the older models were like the 029 Farm Boss, the 027, 270, some of those older saws. They're heavier, they don't have as much power, they're just not meant to run constantly like some of these bigger saws are. So whether if you're a Husqvarna guy, the comparable model to this would be like your 455 Rancher. Something like that's going to be comparable to this, where it's good for cutting, you know, some wood. But if you're getting into what's almost 20 cord of wood or this bigger stuff, you need a professional level saw that's more horsepower, that's just made to run constantly, that has better build quality, that has better anti-vibe. So you know, when you're running it that much, that you're not getting wore out. So to me, that's a key factor in the saw that you're going to choose, but that depends on the amount of wood that you're going to have. We're going to show you some of the other tools that we have here. Is the cant hook. So on a big pile like this, you could use a tool like this cant hook to roll the logs down off the pile, so you're not reaching up or, you know, trying to roll them down by hand and crushing your fingers and stuff like that. And a pickaroon. So if you cut some of these logs, you can pick in there and pull them out of the way, or for some of these logs, you can use this to roll them individually. And to me, the measure stick is important for two reasons. One, all the wood that we get from the loggers is about 100 inch. So this measure stick is 24 inches. That's the size of the wood splitter that I have. So I'm utilizing the maximum space of the wood splitter, what it can split. And also when you have a nice even stack of firewood, it piles up better. So with the woodshed, each side has a depth of 8 feet. So when you have 4 nice rows, it fits in there properly. There's no wasted space or dead space. So you can fit as much wood as possible into your woodshed. So there's just a couple of the key things that to look for when you're buying a chainsaw, when you're worrying about cutting firewood. All right, in the last part of this video, we're just going to talk a little bit about property maintenance. A year and a half ago, I had somebody come in with a forestry mulcher, which is a big attachment on the front of a skid steer, and he cleared a lot of the woody brush that was here and overgrown trails, and he really defined kind of where the property line is and where I want to have a fence line. Well, I'd screwed up, and for a year and a half, I really didn't do anything with it, and all the stuff grew right back. So then I had to come back through. You can see it's cleared back down now. With the rotary cutter on the back of a tractor, I was able to knock it down. So the point being, you got to keep up on the maintenance, whether you put animals on it right away to keep that vegetation down, or you're going to do it with a tractor, or do it even by hand, you know, a loppers, a chainsaw, whatever method you have to keep that stuff down, you know, your lawnmower or whatever. You got to keep up on the maintenance. Otherwise, you spent all that money or did all that work just to kind of let it go to hell and do all the work and pay a bunch of money to redo it. So what we're going to do here is clear the rest of this high grass. There's some down trees in there that we can cut up for firewood. We're going to get the rest of this cleared back out so we can define our fence line, because we have our creek here. We want to keep animals, dogs, everything on the property. So once we get that done, there's some handwork to be done here with the chainsaw and everything, and the weed eater to get that defined, get the fence line in, and start maintaining this with some animals, or if we don't get animals on there, with the tractor, but just to keep up on the maintenance and utilize your land to the most potential that you have. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and keep an eye out for the next video. We're going to do some more updates with the pigs and show you the other things that we've been working on.